When I unfolded that tiny, crumpled napkin, I never, ever imagined the 6 words scribbled inside would detonate a bomb in the middle of my life. "Pretend you're sick and get out of here." I looked up from the napkin, my eyes locking with my grandson's. He was just a kid, only 10 years old. But the look on his face, it wasn't a kid's look. It was sheer primal terror. He gave his head the slightest, most frantic shake, his eyes wide, silently begging me, "Believe me, Grandpa, please." It was only 10 minutes later that I understood he wasn't just trying to get out of a boring dinner. He was trying to save my life. But before we get into that, make sure you're already subscribed to our channel and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We absolutely love seeing how far our stories travel. That Tuesday evening had started like any other in our quiet corner of the Chicago suburbs. It had been just over a year since I lost my daughter, my Emily. The grief was still a raw, open wound, and the only thing that kept me going was my grandson, Noah. He was the last piece of her I had left. Since Emily's car accident, her husband, my son-in-law Michael, had been, well, he'd been playing the part of the grieving widower and devoted father perfectly. In everyone's eyes, he was a saint. A successful financial advisor suddenly left to raise his son alone. Our life, or what was left of it, seemed to be finding a new, fragile rhythm. Noah was always a smart kid, observant. Too quiet for his age, maybe. After his mom died, he became even more withdrawn, watching the world from the sidelines like he was trying to solve a puzzle nobody else could see. His relationship with his dad, Michael, was complicated. On the surface, it was fine, but I'd catch these moments. A flicker of fear in Noah's eyes when Michael's voice got a little too sharp, a hesitation before he answered a simple question. I told myself it was just the trauma of losing his mom. That's what I thought anyway. That night, Michael had invited me over for a special dinner at their house. It was a celebration, he'd said. He was about to close a huge deal at work, a game changer that would secure his and Noah's future for good. He was practically buzzing with energy on the phone. "You gotta be here, James," he'd said. "Emily would have wanted you here to celebrate with us." He knew how to use her memory to get what he wanted. I arrived around 6, a bottle of sparkling cider for Noah, and a heavy heart for me. The house, my daughter's house, always felt a little colder without her. Michael was in the kitchen, humming along to some classic rock station, plating steaks that looked like they belonged in a 5-star restaurant. He always had to have the best of everything. "James, glad you could make it," he said, flashing a smile so wide and perfect it could have been on a toothpaste ad. He always dressed like he was about to walk into a boardroom, even at home. A crisp polo shirt, tailored slacks. "Noah's just finishing his homework. He'll be down in a minute." I was about to ask about Noah's day when my grandson appeared at the top of the stairs. His face was pale. There was a knot of tension in his shoulders that a 10-year-old shouldn't have. "Hey, buddy," I called out, trying to sound cheerful. "How's it going?" Noah just gave a little nod, his eyes darting from me to his father and back again. He came down the stairs slowly like he was walking on glass. "What's with the long face, champ?" Michael asked, his voice a little too loud, a little too jovial. "We're celebrating tonight. Big things are happening for us." "Nothing," Noah mumbled, sliding into his chair at the dining table. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared at his empty plate, his hands clenched into tight fists in his lap. Dinner was an uncomfortable affair. Michael did all the talking, going on and on about his brilliant investment strategies, the morons at his office who didn't see his vision, and the massive commission that was coming his way. I tried to include Noah, asking him about school, about his soccer team, but he'd just give one-word answers. "Fine. Okay. Yeah, something was deeply, terribly wrong." I felt a little nudge against my leg under the table. I glanced down. Nothing. Then it happened again. I looked at Noah. He was staring at his plate, but his hand was moving ever so slightly under the table. He was pushing something toward me. It was a wadded-up napkin. I subtly reached down and my fingers brushed against his. They were ice cold. I palmed the napkin and brought it up to my lap, my heart starting to pound a low, steady drumbeat of dread. Michael was in the middle of a story about some yacht he was planning to buy. A 40-footer at least. "We'll take it out on Lake Michigan every weekend, Noah. How does that sound? Noah didn't answer. He was looking at me, his eyes wide and desperate. A silent scream. I carefully unfolded the napkin under the table. The words were written in crayon, shaky and rushed. Pretend you're sick and get out of here. My blood ran cold. I looked at him, my brow furrowed in confusion. A joke? What kind of game was this? James, you with us? Michael's voice cut through the fog. You look like you've seen a ghost, I forced a laugh. Sorry, Michael, just lost in thought. I looked back at Noah. He shook his head again, a tiny, frantic movement. Please, Grandpa. The desperation in his eyes, the raw fear. It was real. In all my years, I'd never seen a child look so utterly terrified. What the hell was going on? Before I could even think, I heard my own voice, shaky but firm. You know, Michael, I'm not feeling so great. I pressed my hand to my chest, putting on a show. My heart's doing a little fluttery thing. Might be my pressure. Michael's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. Right now? James, you were fine 2 minutes ago. I know, I said, trying to sound winded. It just hits me like this sometimes. An old man's ailment. I started to push my chair back. I think I should probably head home. Get my medication. For a tense moment, I thought he was going to argue. He looked from me to Noah, his gaze hardening. He was calculating something, but then he pasted that concerned smile back on his face. Of course, James. Your health comes first, he said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. Let me drive you. I don't want you driving like this. No, I said quickly. The thought of getting in a car with him sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. I wouldn't want to ruin your celebration. I'll just call a cab. It'll be here in minutes. I had to get Noah out. Noah, buddy, I said, looking directly at my grandson. Could you be a pal and grab my coat from the hall closet? And walk your old Gramps out to the curb? I could use the help. Michael's eyes flickered with irritation. He doesn't need to go out in the cold. I'll walk you out. Please, Michael, I said, my voice pleading. I'd like my grandson to see me off. Something in my tone must have convinced him it was the wish of a sick old man. He sighed, a dramatic put-upon sound. Fine, but Noah, you come right back inside. You hear me? Yes, Dad, Noah whispered. As soon as we were out of the front door and the cold night air hit us, Noah's composure crumbled. He grabbed my hand, his whole body trembling. Grandpa, we have to run, he whispered, his voice cracking. He's gonna hurt you. Slow down, Noah. What are you talking about? Who's going to hurt me? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. Dad? He choked out, looking back at the house as if expecting Michael to burst out at any second. He's going to kill you, Grandpa. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled on the pavement, catching myself on a nearby lamppost. My entire world tilted on its axis. Kill me, Michael? This was insane. It was something out of a bad movie. Noah. That's a terrible thing to say. That's not a funny joke, I managed to say, my own voice sounding thin and weak. Do you think I'd joke about this? He cried, tears finally streaming down his pale cheeks. His face was a mess of fear and anger. I heard him, Grandpa. I heard everything. A car pulled up to the curb. My ride share. Get in, I said, my mind reeling. We climbed into the back seat, the driver giving us a curious look. I gave him my address, my voice on autopilot. Tell me, I said, turning to Noah as the car pulled away from the curb, away from that house. Tell me exactly what you heard. Noah took a shuddering breath. Last night, he began, his voice barely a whisper. I couldn't sleep. I went to get some water. His office door. It was a little open. He was on the phone, talking real quiet. Noah paused, swallowing hard. He was talking about you. He said your name. My fingers dug into the car seat. He said, everything is set for tomorrow night. James will come for dinner. He'll have a little too much to drink. Maybe a fall down the stairs on his way out. He's an old man. No one will question a thing. The insurance policy will solve all our problems. The air left my lungs. The insurance policy. My Emily, my sweet practical daughter, had insisted Michael and I take out policies on each other years ago, with her and Noah as the beneficiaries. Just in case, Dad, she'd said, to make sure everyone is taken care of. It was for $1 million, and then Noah's voice trembled. Then he laughed. Grandpa? He laughed like he was talking about a good joke. I felt my stomach turn over. This couldn't be happening. Michael, the man I'd entrusted with my daughter, with my grandson. The man I'd tried to see as a son. Maybe you misunderstood, Noah, I said, my voice pleading, desperate for another explanation. Maybe it was a metaphor. For a business deal or something. Noah shook his head fiercely. No, he said, with James gone, the estate settles and the policy pays out. I'll finally be free. And then he said my name. A deep, soul-shattering coldness seeped into my bones. He said, and then I just have to manage the kid for a few more years until he's 18. After that, he can do whatever he wants. The implication was horrifying. Michael didn't just want me gone. He saw his own son, my grandson, as an obstacle to be managed. The driver glanced at us in the rearview mirror, a flicker of concern on his face. I was just staring out the window, the familiar suburban streets looking alien and menacing. Michael wasn't just a grieving widower. He was a monster wearing my son-in-law's face. There's more, Noah whispered, pulling his school backpack onto his lap. He unzipped a small pocket and pulled out a stack of folded papers. After he got off the phone, he was looking at papers on his desk. I waited till he went to bed, and I went into his office. He handed them to me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read them. They were bank statements, overdue notices, letters from investors, but they weren't friendly. They were threatening. Words like fraud, legal action, and ruin jumped off the page. Michael wasn't on the verge of a huge deal. He was completely, utterly broke. He was a con man, and his con was falling apart. He's been lying about everything, Noah said, his voice flat with a terrifyingly adult sense of disillusionment. The company, it's all gone. He owes people a lot of money. I pulled my car up to the curb a block away from my own small, quiet house. I couldn't go in there, not yet. My mind was a whirlwind of betrayal and fear. Michael was bankrupt. He'd been lying to me, to everyone, for God knows how long. He'd painted this picture of success while his world was burning down around him, and I was his escape plan. I was worth more to him dead than alive. Oh my God, I whispered, the full weight of it crashing down on me. How could I have been so blind? Noah put his small hand on my arm. It was a gesture of comfort that was so backward, so wrong. A 10-year-old boy comforting his grandfather about the fact his own father was a monster. It's not your fault, Grandpa, he said, his voice steady now. He fools everyone. Suddenly, a horrifying thought hit me. Noah, you took these papers from his office? What if he notices they're gone? What if he knows that you know? The fear was back in his eyes. I put them in my backpack this morning before school. I was going to show you this weekend, he said. I don't think he's looked for them yet. But he might. My phone buzzed in my pocket. My heart leaped into my throat. It was a text from Michael James. Are you okay? You really scared us. Please call me. I'm worried sick. The sheer hypocrisy of it made me sick to my stomach. He was already building his narrative. The concerned son-in-law, worried about his frail elderly father-in-law. What are we going to do, Grandpa? Noah asked, his voice trembling again. It was the question I had no answer for. We couldn't go back to his house. That much was clear, but we couldn't just vanish. Michael had resources. He was smart, manipulative. If we just ran, he'd paint me as a confused old man who'd kidnapped his own grandson. He'd have the police looking for us, and he'd be the victim. We needed a plan. And we needed proof. Real, undeniable proof that no one could dismiss as the ramblings of a scared child and a grieving old man. We need to call the police, I said, pulling out my phone. And say what? Noah challenged, his logic sharp and brutal. That I heard him on the phone? That we have these papers? It's his word against ours. He'll just say you're old and confused and that I'm a kid who misunderstood. He'll say you're trying to take me away from him. He was right. Of course he was right. We were a grieving grandfather and a traumatized child. Michael was a respected businessman in the community. I could already hear how he'd twist the story. Another text from Michael. Where did you go? The cab company said they dropped you off a block from your house. Why aren't you home? I'm coming over to check on you. My blood turned to ice. He was coming here. He was coming to my house to finish what he'd planned to start tonight. The fall down the stairs wouldn't be at his house. It would be at mine. We have to get out of here, I said, my mind racing. He's coming here. Where do we go? Noah asked, his eyes wide. An idea, a crazy, reckless idea began to form in my mind. It was born of desperation and a cold, rising anger. The anger of a man who had lost his daughter and was now about to lose everything else to the man responsible. "We need more than these papers," I said, my voice gaining a firmness I didn't know I had. "We need something he can't explain away, something from his office, his computer." Noah had said Michael was always on his laptop. The real truth, the digital trail of his fraud and his plans, had to be on there. "But he's at the house," Noah said. "We can't go back there." "He's not at the house," I corrected him, my plan crystallizing. "He's on his way here, which means his house is empty." I made a U-turn, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The quiet suburban streets felt like a labyrinth, and we were the prey. "Grandpa, what are you doing?" Noah yelled, his voice tight with panic. "You're going the wrong way!" "Think with me, Noah," I said, my voice low and urgent. "If we run now, he controls the story. He calls the police, says I'm senile, that I've taken you. We become fugitives. But if we can get into his office, onto his computer, if we can find the emails he's been sending, the websites he's been visiting, we get the proof we need. The real proof." Noah stared at me, his expression a mixture of terror and awe. "But how? We don't have a key." "Your mom gave me a spare key years ago," I said, the memory hitting me with a pang of sorrow. "For emergencies, Dad," she'd said. This, I thought, was the definition of an emergency. "It's on my keychain." "But what if he comes back?" Noah asked. "What if he figures out what we're doing?" "He thinks I'm a frail old man waiting at home for him to come and check on me," I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. "He's underestimating us. That's our only advantage. We have to be fast." In and out. As we drove, my phone buzzed again. And again. A series of texts from Michael James. "I'm almost at your place. Please be there. I'm worried you had a fall. I'm calling the police if you don't answer. I'm scared something has happened to you." He was laying the groundwork, creating a digital trail of his concern. The man was a snake. We parked 2 streets away from his house and cut through the backyards, moving in the shadows like criminals. The irony was not lost on me. We approached the back of the house, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was about to break into my own daughter's home to find proof that her husband was a monster who was trying to kill me. The thought was so surreal, so nightmarish, I felt like I was moving through a dream. I pulled out my keys, my hand shaking so violently it took me 3 tries to get the key in the lock. It turned with a soft click. "Okay," I whispered to Noah as we slipped inside. "The office. You know his password?" Noah nodded, his face grim. "It's Emily's birthday," he said, and the cruelty of that detail twisted like a knife in my gut. We crept down the hall to Michael's home office. The door was closed. I pushed it open and we stepped inside. The room was immaculate, organized. The room of a man who liked control. On the sleek modern desk sat a closed laptop. "Okay, Noah," I whispered. "Do it. Fast." Noah sat in the expensive leather chair, his small fingers flying over the keyboard. He typed in the password. The screen came to life. "His email," I urged. "Look in the trash, the sent folder, anywhere." Noah's eyes scanned the screen. "Here," he said, clicking open a folder labeled Personal Finances. It was a maze of spreadsheets and correspondence. But then he found it, a subfolder, labeled simply Contingency. He clicked it open. My blood turned to ice. It was all there. Copies of my life insurance policy, a forged will, leaving my entire estate, my house, my savings, to Michael. And then the search history. I leaned over his shoulder, reading the words, untraceable. Poisons that mimic heart attack. How to stage a household accident for elderly. Delaying autopsy reports. Cayman. Island's bank account setup. It was a step-by-step blueprint for my murder. Cold, methodical, and evil. "Take pictures," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "With your phone. Get everything." Noah quickly pulled out his phone and started snapping photos of the screen, his hands moving with a speed and precision that belied his age. Just as he was photographing the last document, we heard it, the sound of a car door slamming shut in the driveway. My heart stopped. "He's back," Noah whispered, his eyes wide with terror. "Grandpa, he's back." We were trapped. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. We heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway, then the distinct sound of the car engine cutting out. Keys jangled. "He was at the front door. He's back," Noah whispered, his eyes blown wide with terror. Grandpa, he's back. My mind went blank for a full second. We were on the ground floor, but the office was at the front of the house. The window looked out onto the porch. We were completely, hopelessly exposed. I grabbed Noah, pulling him down behind the massive oak desk, my heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird. We crouched in the shadows, hardly daring to breathe. The front door opened. Footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor. Michael was home. Stay down, I mouthed to Noah, who was trembling so hard I could feel it through the floor. Michael's voice drifted into the office, calm and conversational. He was on the phone. No, I'm at his place now. The door was unlocked, but he's not here. His car is gone. He paused, listening. I know. I have a terrible feeling. He was acting so strangely at dinner. Confused. He was creating his alibi, brick by brick, painting me as a senile old man who had wandered off. His footsteps grew louder. He was walking down the hall, directly towards the office. My blood ran cold. This was it. He was going to find us. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable scream, the violence I knew he was capable of. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. My heart stopped with them. Listen, I've got to go, Michael said into the phone. I need to check something on my computer. I'll call you back. He was coming in. I looked around the office in a blind panic. There was nowhere to go. We were cornered. Noah buried his face in my side, letting out a tiny, muffled sob. Then a miracle. Michael's phone rang again. What? He answered, his voice sharp with irritation. No, I told you the money will be wired by Friday. You'll get it when you get it. His voice was low, menacing. This was the real Michael. Threaten me again, and you'll get nothing. You understand? His footsteps moved away from the office door and towards the kitchen. He was distracted. This was our only chance. I grabbed Noah's hand. The window, I whispered, pointing to the large window at the side of the office. It looked out onto the dark, narrow path between his house and the neighbors. Now, go! We crawled on our hands and knees to the window, my old joints screaming in protest. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers clumsy with adrenaline. It finally clicked open. I slid the window up inch by silent inch, the sound of it scraping in its frame like a scream in the dead quiet house. You first, I whispered, helping Noah scramble through. He landed softly on the mulch outside. I could hear Michael still talking in the kitchen, his voice a low, angry murmur. I didn't have much time. I swung one leg over the sill, then the other, my body feeling ancient and clumsy. I landed with a soft thud on the ground next to Noah, a sharp pain shooting up my ankle. I bit back a cry of pain. Run! I hissed, grabbing his hand. We didn't look back. We scrambled through the bushes, across the neighbor's perfectly manicured lawn, and back onto the street, melting into the darkness. We ran without stopping for 2 full blocks before I had to lean against a tree, gasping for air, my ankle throbbing in agony. We did it, Noah panted, looking back the way we came. We got away. For now, I said, my mind racing. He'll go into that office. He'll see you use the computer. He'll know we have proof. He's not just a con man anymore, Noah. He's a cornered animal. And he's going to be more dangerous than ever. We couldn't go to my house. That was the first place he'd look. We couldn't go to a hotel. I'd have to show ID. My mind spun, searching for an anonymous sanctuary. A place to think. The 24-hour diner, I decided. On Route 12, we can get a booth in the back. No one will bother us there. I called another rideshare, my voice still shaky. During the ride, Noah didn't say a word. He just stared out the window, his phone clutched in his hand like a holy relic. It held our only hope. The photos. The digital proof of Michael's monstrous plan. The diner was a little island of light in the dark. The smell of coffee and stale grease hung in the air. A tired-looking waitress with a kind face showed us to a cracked vinyl booth in the back corner. You two all right? She asked, looking at my disheveled clothes and Noah's pale, tear-streaked face. You look like you've been through the ringer. Just a long night, I said. 2 coffees, please, and a hot chocolate for the boy. Extra whipped cream, she nodded and shuffled off. As soon as we were alone, I looked at Noah. Show me the pictures again. He unlocked his phone and handed it to me. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning. The search history, the forged will, the life insurance policy. It was a portrait of pure evil. We have to go to the police now, Noah said. With this, they have to believe us. And what if Michael has already called them? I countered, the grim reality of our situation setting in. What if he's already filed a report? My unstable father-in-law has kidnapped my son. He's having delusions. He's smart, Noah. He'll have a story for everything. He'll say I photoshopped these images. He'll say I'm trying to frame him to get custody of you. Despair washed over me. We were trapped in a web of his lies. It was our word and a kid's phone against a respected member of the community. My phone vibrated. A new text. It wasn't from Michael. It was a police alert. Silver alert issued for James Miller, 72, and endangered minor Noah Miller, 10. Last seen in Chicago suburbs. Grandfather may be confused and disoriented. If seen, call 911. My blood ran cold. He did it, I whispered, showing the phone to Noah. He actually did it. He had officially turned us into criminals. Now any cop who saw us wouldn't see a grandfather protecting his grandson. They'd see a kidnapper and his victim. What do we do? Noah asked, his voice cracking. I racked my brain, scrolling through the contacts in my phone, my thumb swiping past names of golf buddies and old neighbors. Who could help us? Who would believe us? And then I saw the name. David, my old partner from the force. David. We'd walked a beat together in some of the toughest neighborhoods in Chicago back in the 70s. He'd retired a few years back, but his mind was still as sharp as a tack. He was a born skeptic, a man who could smell a lie from a mile away. If anyone could see through a polished phony like Michael, it was David. I dialed the number, praying he was awake. He picked up on the third ring, his voice gravelly with sleep. James? It's 2 a.m. Is everything all right? David, I'm in serious trouble, I said, my voice low and urgent. I need your help. The kind of help you can't get from calling 911. Over the next 10 minutes, I laid it all out for him. The note, the conversation Noah overheard, the escape, the proof on the laptop, Michael's bankruptcy, the silver alert. I told him everything, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. David listened without interrupting. When I was done, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. James, he finally said, and his voice was dead serious. You stay put. Don't talk to anyone. Don't move. I'm on my way. Where are you? I gave him the address of the diner. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. And James, you did the right thing. You and that grandson of yours. You did good. Hanging up, I felt the first glimmer of hope I'd felt all night. We weren't alone anymore. Someone was on our side. Noah had fallen asleep, his head resting against the back of the booth, his face still pale but finally peaceful in sleep. He was just a boy. He should be at home in his bed, dreaming about superheroes and soccer games, not crouching in the back of a greasy spoon diner, a fugitive because he had the courage to save his grandfather. A wave of protective love washed over me, so fierce it almost hurt. I would not let Michael win. I would not let him destroy this boy's life. I was so lost in thought, I didn't notice the police car pull silently into the diner's parking lot. I didn't see the 2 officers get out and scan the windows until one of them pointed directly at our booth. Your son-in-law's house. He's being detained for questioning. Relief, so powerful and overwhelming it almost made my knees buckle, washed over me. It wasn't over, but the tide had turned. We weren't the fugitives anymore. The rest of the morning was a blur. We were escorted to the precinct, not as suspects, but as witnesses. We gave our formal statements in a quiet room, with David sitting right beside us, making sure our story was heard and recorded properly. Noah was a star. He recounted everything with a clarity and composure that stunned the detectives. He never wavered, never got confused. He just told the truth. The search of Michael's house and office turned up everything. The laptop, with its damning search history, was seized. Forensic accountants started digging into the financial records, quickly uncovering a massive Ponzi scheme and millions in embezzled funds. They found the forged will. They even found a small, unlabeled vial hidden in a safe behind a painting. A fast-acting poison that would, indeed, mimic the symptoms of a massive coronary. The final nail in Michael's coffin came when the police investigated his phone records. The call Noah had overheard was to a loan shark, a man with a long and violent criminal record. When faced with serious charges of his own, the loan shark quickly confirmed that Michael had promised him a huge payout from a family inheritance. that was due to come in any day. Now, Michael's fortress of lies crumbled to dust when he was confronted with the overwhelming evidence. The polished, charming facade finally cracked. The man I'd seen on the stand wasn't the grieving widower or the concerned father. He was a cornered rat. He screamed, he threatened, he accused me of orchestrating the entire thing. He told the police I was a manipulative old man trying to steal his son, but no one was buying it anymore. The truth was out. The trial was swift. Michael was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, solicitation of murder, fraud, embezzlement, and child endangerment. The judge, a stern woman who had seen it all, looked at Michael with utter contempt as she delivered the sentence. "You are a predator who hides behind a mask of respectability," she said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "You preyed on a grieving family, and you were willing to sacrifice a good man's life and your own son's well-being for money. You are a cancer on society." He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. He would never get out. He would never hurt anyone ever again. As they led him away in handcuffs, his eyes met mine one last time across the courtroom. There was no remorse in them, only pure, undiluted hatred. But it didn't matter anymore. He was powerless. He couldn't hurt us. In the aftermath, life slowly, painstakingly, began to find a new normal. The legal system awarded me full and permanent custody of Noah. The house, my daughter's house, was sold, its contents liquidated to help pay back some of the investors Michael had defrauded. We used what little was left of my daughter's estate and my savings to buy a small, sunny 2-bedroom condo in a new town, far away from the shadows and bad memories. It was a fresh start. For both of us, we had David and the kind-faced waitress from the diner over for our first dinner in the new place. We ate pizza out of cardboard boxes on the floor of the empty living room, and we laughed. For the first time in over a year, I heard my grandson laugh a real deep belly laugh. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. Healing wasn't a straight line. There were hard days. Noah had nightmares. I had moments of profound sadness, grieving for the daughter I'd lost and the years I'd lost, trusting the man who betrayed her memory. We started seeing a therapist, a wonderful woman who helped us unpack our trauma and grief, both together and separately. She helped me see that I hadn't been blind. I had been hopeful. I'd wanted to see the best in the man my daughter had chosen. And she helped Noah understand that what his father did was not his fault, that his father's sickness was not a reflection on him. One sunny Saturday afternoon, about a year after that terrible night, Noah and I were at a park. He had joined a local soccer league, and I never missed a game. He was no longer the quiet, withdrawn boy who watched from the sidelines. He was in the middle of the action, shouting to his teammates, a fierce look of concentration on his face. He scored a goal, a beautiful shot that sailed right into the corner of the net. The other parents cheered. I cheered the loudest, my heart swelling with a pride so immense I thought it might burst. He ran over to the sideline to get a drink of water, his face flushed and beaming. "Did you see that, Grandpa?" he yelled, his eyes sparkling. "I saw it, buddy," I said, ruffling his sweaty hair. "That was an incredible shot." "You're a natural." He took a long swig of water and looked up at me, his expression suddenly serious. "Grandpa," he said, "are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. I looked at my grandson, this incredible, brave, resilient boy. I looked at the sunshine filtering through the trees, at the other families laughing and playing. I felt the solid ground beneath my feet, and I realized, with a sudden startling clarity, that I was. "Yeah, Noah," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I really am." He gave me a huge, gap-toothed grin. "Me too," he said, before running back onto the field. I sat there on that park bench, watching him play, and I thought about that crumpled napkin. Those 6 little words, "Pretend you're sick and get out of here." It felt like a lifetime ago. A simple act of courage from a little boy had saved us. It had led us through the darkest night of our lives and out into the sunshine on the other side. We had lost so much. But we had found each other. We had found a new life, a peaceful life, built not on lies and greed, but on love and truth. And as I watched my grandson run, free and joyful under the bright blue sky, I knew deep in my soul that we were going to be okay. We were home. And we were finally, truly, happily living ever after. With a big smile,